It is State of the Franchise Year in Review edition. The San Francisco 49ers 2024 season is thankfully over. My goodness. What a year it has been. We had the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch give their exit presser today. So there's some things to come out of that. Coaching moves, player moves, and everything in between. We'll talk about it all coming up right now on State of the Franchise. So let's get into it. Yeah. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now. Mr. Aponte, good to see you. This is our first time talking since the end of the year. How do you feel now that the season is officially over, that is known as the 2024 San Francisco 49ers season?
Maybe the real playoff berth and Super Bowl ring was the friends that we made along the way. No, look, realistically, I've had a take about the season. You know, I felt like right after the Seattle game, it felt like the season was over. I literally tweeted as much like season's over. It just felt like the team was defeated. So right now, it just feels like a perfect time for this team to reset, reboot, have this time to get into a full offseason because they haven't been able to for 3 seasons. And I think that's directly correlated to the coaching moves that you're seeing and everything as well, too. So I think while you never want to see the team play this poorly or lose this many games, less of all us, it might be just what the doctor ordered for a team that is trying to get back in the saddle and start to have sustained winning over and over again.
Absolutely. I think when I look back at the season and how it went, it just felt like there was such an emotional letdown from the Super Bowl. And then we actually even heard Kyle say it today. It was one of the things that stood out to me. He was like, man, we weren't ready to be back. We weren't ready to be in OTAs and mandatory minicamp because I don't think they were. I mean, that was such a difficult loss. And I think it's hard for some fans to like maybe rationalize because like we always talk about, Jason, we view these guys as humans. So we have the ability to evaluate them as such. And some people don't. They look at them as a jersey and a number that are interchangeable, and you just get someone else if it's not working out, whatever, blah, blah, blah. There's something to be said for coming off a loss like they did in the Super Bowl and then what feels like no time at all. Boom, all of a sudden you're back. You're practicing. You're back in the building. Like, and I think that's how the entire season felt. At least for me. It just felt like we never got a break. We never got the break we needed because it was Super Bowl loss, into offseason drama, into crappy vibes at training camp, into right in. It's like, oh my gosh, it's week 1. Like, this is crazy. And then it's like, wait, the season's over? Did this year ever actually start? That's kind of what that felt like. So I do agree. I think that even though you never want to be at home on January 8th, you know, doing exit press conferences and firing your coaches and doing things like that, that's never the goal. There's something to be said for the 49ers not experiencing this since 2020, right? Or the 2021 offseason. So I do think it's needed. I think you're right.
Well, perhaps, you know, there's something that's out there that's called the Mandela effect. What if the 2024 season never happened due to the Mandela effect?
We're living in a simulation, Jason.
You know what? I didn't really see all that. I didn't see, you know, all those multiple double-digit losses. I didn't see them lose to inferior opponent after inferior opponent. Depends on your view, you know. You know what they say, the bright side of things is always the warmest. So I guess that's what I'm trying to bring on to this and everything as well too. But going back to kind of what you were talking about, I think the human element is the thing that if you didn't take into account before, it now, absolutely, with everything considered and all of the things that have happened, to Mooney Ward saying literally, I don't think I can come back to California because he lost his 1-year-old daughter and
That's
and
brutal.
and 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 just I'm so glad, and I'm not glad that it happened. I'm saying that I'm glad that he vocalized what was going on in his mind, because
Right.
fans take it personally when players reject their team and sign with other teams, when you really should be taking into account that it wasn't the organization that didn't try. There are things at play that are outside of all those things. He's thinking about his wife. His wife doesn't want to be in California because they have that experience, right? We have what happened with Trent. We have, right to your point about week 1, Ricky Pearsall was shot.
Right.
This season has just been a
Yeah.
litany of one after the other of tragedy, again, holdouts and everything. All that stuff is business related. This stuff is not business related. And
Yeah.
this team and what they've had to overcome this season and what they've had to deal with, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And based on just the personal tragedies, some of our players lost kids this year. Ricky Pearsall got shot in the chest. Um,
Forrester lost his wife right before the Super Bowl.
right. Oh yeah, yeah. Chris Forrester lost his wife right before the Super Bowl. And that technically is 2024.
Yeah.
I don't think you should say that those are the reasons that you feel like the vibes are off. I'm just trying to give you context into what exactly this team was dealing with, and them being very vocal about it, I think is refreshing, because players are viewed as assets and not people with feelings and doing the right things for their family. When a player
Yeah.
doesn't choose the 49ers, it's not because he said, "Oh, screw the 49ers and screw 49ers fans." It's because he made the right decision for his family. He made the right decision for himself. So, in a way, I'm very glad that he vocalized that, but that's just some of the stuff that this team was dealing with, on top of the fact that Ayuk held out and Trent held
Right.
out and Christian McCaffrey was injured, and when you lump all those things together, I don't know if there's another team that would be able to deal with those set of circumstances and be able to return the results that you expected going into the season, which was, "Oh, run it back. We're going right back to the bowl." Everyone was pretty much, the NFC is still theirs. It's just this year is your perfect example of wrong time, wrong place, just not your
Yeah.
year. And that's why, if you're looking for optimism, it's this offseason. It is this
Yeah.
offseason, in terms of
Absolutely.
there's so many different ways the 49ers can go about rebuilding and retooling this team, whether it just be fully in the draft and in free agency, and who they could bring back that are surprises. The possibilities are endless. And I think that's what makes this exciting. Also, by the way, I don't want to bury the lead. Thoughts and prayers to anybody in California that is dealing with these fires and everything. I hope you're safe. I hope your property's good, and I hope that your families are safe as well too. I couldn't imagine. So anybody that's watching, I hope everything is going, good with you, and that you're safe, because that is such a scary thing to experience what's going on in California right now.
Yeah, to echo your thoughts, my sister's in LA right now, and she's actually kind of like right on the other side of what's going on. So I've actually been talking with her today and, trying to put together a plan, and we might have to get her out of there pretty soon because it's getting crazy. So definitely wild times. But hopefully everyone has an opportunity to get to safety if they can, and if you have lost whatever it may be, think where everyone's thinking about you guys, because
Yeah.
unimaginable what we're seeing within like the last 24 hours, dude. When I saw the photos of it, I was like, oh, like I heard of there's a fire. I'm like, okay, like there's we're in California, so we have fires all the time. Like it's
Mhm.
you remember 2020, Jason? You remember how they would show the practice field and it would be orange sky, like
It looked
so.
like Blade Runner,
Yeah, it looks like something that we're like super like we're just kind of
like
used to
Total
that
Recall.
here. But the fact that it's happening in such a condensed populated area, that's the difference.
Yeah.
It was happening in the cuts where there weren't a ton of people. So yeah, absolutely. Thoughts and prayers to everyone who's out there who's dealing with that. I can't imagine how terrifying that is. And, you know, like I said, my sister's going through it. We're talking about like, all right, we really got to think about getting you out of there, right? Because you also don't want to get it stuck in a situation where you can't get out of there. So it's almost like you got to be a little bit preemptive. But, you know, bringing it back, you know, I think you kind of mentioned it. Like, with all the things that have happened this season, the 49ers still found themselves potentially in a position to make the playoffs. And I think that it depends on your context. It depends on your perspective, right?
Either the NFCs or if either the NFC's mid or the 49ers kept it together well enough, right? Like I think that's where you were going with it.
Pretty much. Like, if they win 3 division games, there's a good chance we're in the playoffs right now. And we talk about in the NFL, the margins of error are so paper thin. And so when you combined all the loss, the injuries, the vibes, whatever you want to call it, right? You might be able to be like, all right, those paper thin margins, we fell on the wrong side of them this season. So let's regroup, get it together, and move forward. So I think that's where we're at. And with the press conferences today, it signals the finality of the 2024 season. And not only that, the finality of some coaching changes. We had in the last, day or two, a bunch of moves come down. So let's talk about that. No Schneider, he's out as special teams coordinator, and Nick Sorensen is out as DC. Now, Nick Sorensen might stick around. He might take over the special teams role. We don't know. But what was your initial reaction, and how do you see that benefiting the 49ers moving forward?
Well, the Schneider thing, I think, was the worst kept secret in the world. I don't see how you can entertain the idea of bringing somebody back when every single time that we can feel a fake punter is coming on the field, they can't. Every single time that we feel that you can't allow a big return, they do. Every time we feel you can't miss a kick, they will. So, yeah, you can look at it and the way that Kyle answered, because Kyle was talking about like, yeah, I don't see how you could say that we don't care about special teams. We allocated 3rd and 4th round picks to a kicker and a punter. Yeah, that was dumb. That was dumb. That's been done since day one. It's been dumb. But I think we knew what was going on with Schneider. But the problem is that this is a problem before Schneider. So does a special teams coordinator, a new one, come in and change anything? I don't know. I do like the little bit of the response from Kyle in saying we brought in George Odom, Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles stuck around on this roster because of special teams. So he's saying, it's not that I don't care about special teams. I've tried to throw as many things as I can at special teams, but you've tried to throw as many things as special teams as you can, so the problem will go away and you don't have to pay attention to it. You can't see these eyes. There's no wool put over them. None. You're not gonna get me with this. You might be able to get those beat writers who aren't gonna ask you a question right after, but you're not getting me. Just because you stupidly threw away 2 high-end picks on specialists, and then you signed a bunch of guys who are good at special teams and just walked away and let things happen because you were just like, well, my job here is done. It doesn't mean that you really care. So you could lie to yourself. Don't lie to me. And that's what Kyle does. Kyle does it at times. Kyle gives you the you don't know ball. I'm Kyle Shanahan. And John Lynch tried to step in. I saw that too. John Lynch was like, hey, man, hold on, Kyle. He was like, hold up. He was like, hold up.
He knew right away.
Yeah.
He knew, he could feel the energy coming from Kyle. He was going to say something. He said, hold on. Let me say this for Kyle.
He was like, hold up, Kyle. He was like, I got this. Let me get my shit off. This is what he said. I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't mean to curse. I know I can't do it on the show or whatever. But he was like, hey, let me talk. Nobody watches kickers more than this guy. We're in there like no. He said we're not kicker specialists. Nothing that was said changes anything that I thought. None of it. So yeah, you know what, man? Say what you want. Lie to yourself in the mirror. Think that everybody's just gonna take what you said as gospel, but you don't really care about special teams at all. And you know what's funny?
He cares when it affects him losing
games. Kyle is like me in this way. Here's what I need special teams to be. A net zero unit. You don't give anything up, and you don't gain anything. You're just there. Like, don't
participation award.
Don't mess this up, please.
100%.
Catch the punt, tackle the guy, make the field goal. Like, that's what this. If the 49ers special team unit was a net zero unit, this team would have won so many more games. The idea that people are like, oh, the 49ers special team is mid. I wish to God they were mid.
No, they're awful. They're
awful.
They're bad.
They weren't mid.
Eye test, all of it.
They weren't mid. The kids use mid, right? A lot.
Yeah.
But mid literally means average. And you wish that this unit was average, because they would have won games. They didn't have to gain them anything. They didn't have to lose them anything. The problem is this unit over and over lost them things. And that's why this team, and we're so frustrated now, is because no matter what you thought about Richard Hightower, they weren't losing them games. In fact, I would argue one of the 49ers' biggest wins in the Kyle Shanahan era was off of a special teams gap for another team in Green Bay. What if I told you the San Francisco 49ers were going to win a playoff game and they weren't going to score an offensive touchdown? How do you do that? You do it by that team having a worse special teams than your team. So all this to say, sure, a new special team person is going to come in here. Neat. Until something changes, the 49ers special team has been trash since 2011. 2011.
Oh, God.
2011. Guys, walk with me. Walk with me.
No, I don't want to go there.
Walk with me. Walk with me. Because now y'all got me on one. Walk with me. This is a special teams unit that has been routinely trash since 2011. Walk with me. Y'all love Jim Harbaugh, right? If Jim Harbaugh would have had this team and walk with me. Do you remember the names? Kyle Williams, the last punt return a touchdown.
Awful. Absolutely awful.
The last punt return for a touchdown, Brad.
It was kind of nice, though.
The last touchdown for a punt return, Brad Graham. 2012, Ted Ginn. Funny enough, our latest punt returner wears 19. So this is. Don't get mad at me. I'm not the one playing special teams. Somebody gotta figure
someone, Jason.
I mean, if you want to get mad at me, cool. Because you know what I would have did? I would have found a kicker off the street, or I would have kept one of those guys that's already there, and I would have cut the 4th round punter, because Pat O'Donnell's our franchise punter now. He'd been better. I mean, you know what? Maybe get mad at me because they didn't put me in charge of special teams, because I would have never drafted a kicker in the 3rd round. I would have never allowed Pat O'Donnell to leave that building. I would have cut Mitch Wishnowsky and sent them home. I would have sent Jake Moody home, and I would have brought back Matthew Wright. I would have brought back Chase McLaughlin. I would have brought back Joey Slott. Any of these guys. So maybe their fault is not trusting me with special teams, because you know what? Here's my victory lap. Everybody wants to get mad at the 3rd round kicker. I was pissed the minute they announced the name, because you knew that shit was some nonsense. So, but all right, let me get on. I'm done, Brad. You got it now. Please bring some sanity back to the program.
Hey, all I did was cope with it. That's all I did. I tried to make it
franchise kicker, baby.
Franchise kicker.
It's so crazy how quickly everyone went from coping with the pick and telling, he's the best kicker in college. How could you not be excited? And he misses a few kicks, and you guys are treating him like he's Frankenstein, and you're chasing him around with tiki torches. The pick was terrible when they called it out. That is insane. That's insane. What took you so long? I've been here. What took you so long?
Oh man, I'm like going back to that moment, sitting in this chair, doing the live, and that pick being announced. I just remember all I could do was shriek. All I could do was go, "Woo! They did it! They actually did it!" Like we were like, "Don't do it," but they did it, and you're like, "Oh man, if this does not work out, it is going to be an unmitigated disaster." And I mean, while we're on the conversation, and I'll add quickly before we keep going, but I said this the other day. All the 49ers needed to do with special teams was keep their head above water. They just needed to tread water. And that's like what you're saying. Be average. And the 49ers win games. And that's not what had happened. So what do you think does happen? Because Schneider's out. Clearly, Schneider was in Moody's court. That I don't see. I mean, I agree with you. I totally tried to cope with that whole thing. We all disagreed with the process, but it was what it was. Like, it's hard to hate someone right out the gate. So we were trying to make sense of it and be like, okay, well, maybe it will work out. And we saw really quickly, like in preseason, we were like, oh boy, we see the signs. The signs were there. And so now we're 2 years in. He's cost
Alexa, turn off.
He's cost us multiple games. So what do the 49ers do? And again, you have to say it. I think you have to explain it from their perspective as the team that used a third-round draft pick to get him. How do they handle that? Are they going to outright cut, or do you think they're going to bring in another kicker to have a competition?
I mean, this isn't what I would do, because I would have.
I know what you would do, because you would have never drafted.
No. I'm not even going to tell you what I would have done with him after. He's coming back. He's coming back.
Yeah, I think he's coming back for competition. Would you say
he's coming back? If you listen to the way that they talked about it with the special teams, they talked about the faults of the special teams with, well, it sucks a lot when you lose your kicker and you lose your punter. Okay, Kyle, let's unpack that. Because the kickers you brought in were better than Moody. They didn't miss. The punter you brought in has done better than Mitch Wisnowski in his entire time that he's been here. And he was literally sitting in the house. Shout out to my franchise punter, Pat O'Donnell.
There you go.
The problem is, maybe you bring somebody in, but the idea of sticking behind this pick because you need it to work, so you don't look bad because you already did something that was a risk, is what's about to happen. And that's so look, say what you want about the 49ers. When they realized that Trey Lance wasn't the answer, they moved away. And a lot of that is made easier by the fact that Brock Purdy was really good, right? But they cut their losses. And they said, right, they cut their losses. They said, listen, we've got our guy. Let's move on. But they can't do that here. They can't do that here because people are already hated that pick when it first came out, because when I said it happened, I called it an arrogant pick. When you're trying to restock the cupboard and you've already wasted 3 first-round picks on Trey Lance, yes, I say wasted because what have we got in the show for it other than a few games of playing?
We got Malik Mustafa with 3 first-round draft picks.
Right. But you couldn't use a top 100 pick on a specialist, because the same argument that we're having right now with this team and their depth is a result of that. And when you look at all the kickers, we go through it. They're all undrafted. That's how you find a kicker. You don't find them in a draft. But the problem is that was such an arrogant pick. It was just arrogant at the moment because they said, we're just a kicker away. We're good. Let's take a kicker because we can, because we're that good, because we don't need any more help. Instead of taking the chance of, I'd rather have depth and not need it, then all of a sudden, when you need depth, you don't have it. And what is the result of that? It's the process of all these other drafts, including those 3 first-round picks, and then who you've taken. That draft class with Jair Brown, it looks like a huge whiff. Like a huge, one just massive, swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a miss.
On the heels of basically 2 other drafts of the same status. Yeah. And that's, I think, where that's like everyone always ask me, like, Brad, what do you think of the special teams? I'm like, just think about when you go into a season thinking you have your key core special teamers, and then you run through a litany of injuries from starters. Well, what happens? Those guys that you had designated as your special teamers, they're not your special teamers anymore. You're now pulling guys off the street. You're pulling guys off the practice squad. You're pulling guys that barely get out there. And those are now your practice squad, or those are your key special teamers. So it's like, it's a depth issue. It's obviously a kicking issue. You got to be able to make field goals. So there's so many other things, but I mean, Kyle said it. Kyle said Schneider was a fall guy, and that's what had happened. Is he became the fall guy for that situation because it all didn't work out. And so, with that being said, it'll be fascinating to see. But I think to your point is like they have been quick to cut bait. Ty Davis Price, they tried with Danny Gray, but
Trey Sermon, Danny Gray.
They gave him a chance, but then they got rid of him.
Cam Latu,
right away.
Right away. That boy didn't see no bird. They were just like, enough.
They're like, this is bad. And we saw it in training camp. He was unplayable because he couldn't catch anything.
Samuel Womack.
Womack never made sense to me because he had potential.
He looks great in Indy.
So, okay, they move off from that. But again, there's, Drake Jackson turns out to be an unfortunate pick because now he's injured, and we can't even say, like, we knew he was a raw developmental prospect when they took him as a 21-year-old out of USC. So we knew that. Like, we knew he was raw. So we knew he needed time. But I think those picks have changed the philosophy of the 49ers, and we saw that process play out in this last draft, because when we look at this last draft, you got a lot of guys who contributed. Dominic Pooney had over 1,000 snaps this year. Malik Mustafa is a starter. Renardo Green is a starter.
This draft class is great.
It's going to be a starter, but they all have tons of experience.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. So we're talking about a few draft classes in which we don't like the returns on them.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Everyone was upset when Adam Peters left. The first draft that the 49ers have without Adam Peters in a while nets them how many good players?
Dude, amazing. Evan Anderson, even undrafted free agent. Dude, they did a great job. They killed this draft.
But Adam Peters was a part of the process with Ambry Thomas, Ty Davis Price, Drake Jackson, Jake Moody. Like, because this is the part that I have the question about. When Adam Peters left, everyone said, "Oh my God, it's the secret sauce." It almost felt like every single person just said, "Hey, any good pick, that's Adam Peters. Any obvious Kyle pick, wide receiver, that's a Kyle pick." But Adam Peters can do
Kyle pick.
Right. Adam Peters can do no wrong. But yet Adam Peters gets wrapped out.
I didn't even think about that.
Right. Like, Adam Peters leaves the process, and the 49ers get a starting corner, a starting right guard, a starting safety, a possible gem in Ricky Pearsall. And we're going to talk about him because his last 3 games, that makes me more excited than anything.
Absolutely.
And yet we're crying over spilled milk with Adam Peters. I just want to know, who is it? Who did this? Who started this? Show yourself. Which one of you, media people, made it that Adam Peters was the reason for every single good pick, and any bad pick was John Lynch, and any bad pick was Kyle Shanahan, but every good pick was Adam Peters. And then Adam Peters leaves the process, and all of a sudden, you get someone explain it to me. Someone explain it to me, because I'd love to know.
Lisa says Jason's putting out.
No, I'm not.
No, he's just speaking from his heart.
Look. Washington, Adam Peters went there, and Washington's in the playoffs. I think he's done a phenomenal job there.
Yes.
Great. But I'm just talking about, we're literally talking about 3 draft classes in which we're saying there's nobody that's really playable right now or even on the team at times. But Adam Peters, hey, man, how could you let him leave that building? I'm just asking questions because they need answers. The same way that every single time someone hit, it was all Adam Peters. Can someone tell me what Adam Peters actually was in on and why the 49ers did a whole draft without him and they ended up with all these good players?
Speaking of players who were drafted by Adam Peters, the 49ers have released Ronnie Bell from the practice squad.
Forgot he was on the roster. Forgot he was on the roster. I ain't gonna hold you. Forgot he was on the roster. Do you want to hold on? I gotta pull up my article because I did write an article about the year in review for the wide receivers, and this has to be like one of the funniest things actually to it. I want to make sure I look it up so I can say it for sure. So the last, because I only did it for Pearsall, Ayuk, Jennings, and Debo. Wide receivers. Ronnie Bell, Jacob Cowing, Chris Conley, and Trent Taylor accounted for the other 13 receptions from the receiver group. 13 combined. So yeah. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. I just wanted, because you brought up Ronnie Bell, and when I was going through the numbers, I looked through and all of the pass catchers and everything, like, it's literally right there in front of you. Ronnie Bell, Jacob Cowing. Jacob Cowing has 4 catches for 80 yards this season. Chris Conley and Ronnie Bell and Trent Taylor all helped account for the other 13.
Not good, Bob.
Not good great, Bob.
Oh, so, but with all that being said, quite the young talent acquisition, at least this year.
Love this draft. And that's where I was going with it, because I do think a lot of 49er fans were crestfallen when Adam Peters left. Right. And
because of we perceived him to be, he did get some good ones, right? He got Diamador Lenore and Talanoa Hufanga. Those guys were playing really well at a high level.
Mm-hmm. But this year, if you need encouragement going forward, right now, this team has successfully smashed an entire draft. And if they do it again, and it doesn't have to be to this degree, and again, I'll say it as many times as I can until I'm blue in the face. A hit in the draft is on a spectrum. All-pro, Pro Bowler, starter, guy who's a contributor, all of those things constitute hits. The 49ers don't necessarily need another draft class of straight hits, like like a Beyonce album. Not like, it don't got to be all straight hits. It could be some bangers, maybe some filler, some bangers, and some filler. So that's what this draft can be. Yeah, like, again, they're in a position where they can do it again, and it's going to be largely the same people that are going to be making these decisions this season. I just want to kind of just, let people know that, maybe the Adam Peters thing was a little too, overblown. It was just a little too overblown.
Yeah, I think so, because they've proven that, Tariq Ahmed and I think it was RJ Gillum, who are kind of
shout out to Tariq, New Jersey native, South New Jersey. I just wanted to make sure we threw that out there, because he travels, he commutes back and forth from Santa Clara to the Jersey Shore. That's insane.
Does he really?
Yeah, that's what he told us at the combine.
Nah, I don't remember.
Because he just was like, "Oh, you're from Cali?" I was like, "No, I'm from Jersey." He's like, "What do you mean? I'm from South Jersey." I was like, "Tariq, we need to go to Yard House, gang. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we need to go lick at Yard House and talk ball, man. I got these draft prospects to talk about, man. Like, we're wasting time here."
That's so funny, dude. But in all seriousness, with how this team is moving forward, and I think that's just kind of like where we're at. We talked about the coaching. We talked about the draft picks, and that's going to lend itself to hopefully more success into next year. But what do the 49ers do at defensive coordinator? Like, how do they handle that spot? Because we know Sorensen's still in the building, which to me tells me they love Sorensen. They just didn't love him as a DC. So that's fine. If you can, and I think that also speaks to the internal culture. I just want to say quickly before I kick it over to you, is to be able to demote someone and then keep them in the building without feeling lesser of an ego hit. I do think that is.
Comments are crazy.
Well, we know, Jason. We know. So I'm not worried about that. But I do think it does speak highly to the culture that he can say, you know what, I'll step back from being the DC. We'll give it to someone else, and we'll see who that person is. But what are your thoughts on how the 49ers manage the defensive coordinator spot?
I truly believe the end of the season was the changing of their mind when it comes to Nick Sorensen, right? And I saw Tim Kawakami put it out, and I was like, oh my God, I've thought the same thing, because I just want to go back to the last 2 years. During the season when Steve Wilks was the defensive coordinator, this team was saying every negative thing that they could in front of a microphone about Steve Wilks. And the 49ers had a top 10 per play EPA defense. And they were plays away from winning the Super Bowl. And then you fast forward to this season, and we have a lot of the issues on defense, and Nick Bosa's like, I'd love to run it back. And Kyle's like, I think he's doing great. And Demo's like, I love him back there.
He fits their culture. He just isn't a great defensive coordinator.
I listened to what they were saying in spite of the results. And I said, this couldn't be further from, there are no parallels here. It's literally one end of the spectrum for the other. One defensive coordinator actually had this team with a top 10 defense, and then another didn't, but they were saying all the right things about him. And then the other thing is, because of that little burst of energy that Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga gave them towards the end of the season, particularly the 12-point, game against the Rams, it almost felt like they were saying, well, look what happens when you have all your talent around. But I do think these last few games really swayed the mind of this regime. It literally went from, hey, we're going to give them a second chance to, yeah, we can't. And Brad, what do we say all the time? Talent can lift scheme when scheme isn't there, but scheme has to lift talent when talent is not there. And that's just not what happened here at the end of the year. Say what you want. You're missing this guy. You're missing this guy. You're missing this guy. You're missing this guy. In 2020, the San Francisco 49ers were missing everyone. Kerry Hyder was a sack leader. Jason Verrett was playing some of the best football of his life in 2020. And yet that defense was still the top 10 defense. But I do think the last few weeks, particularly this last week where you give up 21 points to the Arizona Cardinals, just was the end of the line. So I do think that they, for a while, if things would have been steady, they would have been able to sell to everybody. I know people wouldn't like to hear this. They would have been able to sell to everybody. Yeah, we're bringing Sorensen back because he's going to have a full litany of help, and he's going to, we're going to restock the cupboard and all that stuff. But yeah, those last few games were so bad that they just said, yeah, we can't do this anymore. So, it is what it is. And I think if you're looking for continuity, none of these guys were ever changing anything. But I did think it was really nice for Kyle to say, yeah, we're not against a scheme change. But I do want to add this, and I'll kick it back to you, Brad, because I know I'm like, a certified yapper right now. Last year, they went after Bill Belichick to be the DC. He declined. Do you think that if Bill Belichick said, you know what, I'd like to come in there, and they say, you know what, Bill, you got to run wide 9, you got to run 3-4, Bill would have said, all right, no. So they were open to this last year. Let's go a little bit further.
Yeah.
They contacted Steve Spagnuolo. You think Steve Spagnuolo would say, sure, I'll take on wide 9 and I'll take on, 3-4 and or 4-3 and no. So they've been open to this. I think what we're forgetting about the Sorensen process is, one, it took the 49ers almost half a lifetime to get going in the offseason because of how long that they played. And then two, by the time you start to go around and look for defensive coordinators, they're all gone.
They're all gone.
So you got to say,
point. I never thought about it that way.
So you got to say, at least this year, they've got a head start on everything. And if you're going into a draft in which you're trying to restock defensive tackle, defensive end, all of those things, edge, all of those things, then you need a defensive coordinator to be in tow right away to understand like what you're trying to do, and you want to get there. So the 49ers do have a leg up this season as opposed to the last 3 off seasons. So if you want positivity, there it is. But last year was hard because by the time they got into the process, remember, we were at the combine and we're asking around, has anybody heard anything? And finally the name came out the last day that I was there, Sorensen. But they weren't looking to just sign Sorensen. They landed on Sorensen. And they said, okay, this is a guy that can like run our stuff, and he's from inside the building. So it wasn't the best process, but they weren't put in the best position because they played so long. At least this year, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt on who they bring in because they have all this time now.
Yeah, no. And I think if it wasn't for public perception, Brandon Staley is probably your defensive coordinator.
Oh my God. Can we talk about it, please? All right, look.
Yeah. Is he gonna be seriously considered?
I think he is.
Yeah.
I don't want him. I do want to laugh though. Like, I just want to laugh, like, more than anything, because people are so mad. Like, people are so mad at Brandon Staley right now this season, and they literally have no idea what Brandon Staley did this entire season. He could have just been he could have just been bringing down the helmets and polishing them, and they're just like, I can't take Brandon Staley, and I was just nobody can tell you what Brandon Staley did. There's never been a time that you've been watching a 49ers game and they've looked up in the booth and they're like, there's assistant head coach Brandon Staley.
Right.
Brandon Staley could have just bringing the cleats down and giving the guys their socks and everything. And everyone hated it so much. The idea that if he becomes a defensive coordinator, I will not be happy. But my God, will I laugh and laugh and laugh at the outcry of it. I just think it's so funny, dude.
Oh, we've already seen it. People have already pushing back.
Staley was the ball washer is crazy.
Dude, I think last night on the stream we were talking about like how, Joe Staley retired during the draft, and it led to them being able to trade for Trent. But I started saying Staley, and the chat started,
Brandon Staley. You meant Joe Staley. Yeah. So we're getting rid of all Staleys. Joe's a GOAT. What are we doing here?
The chat will start like freaking out, like, "Oh God, this guy stinks!" Like, what are we talking about? I'm like,
dude, I never,
Joe Staley, man.
I never, I think I have a good grasp on who 49ers fans really dislike, because hate's a strong word. Right? You don't know, like hate. You don't know somebody.
Fans, they're very passionate.
They're very passionate. They have a strong dislike. I don't think I've ever seen a stronger dislike for anybody than Brandon Staley's phantom hiring of him. Just like the man literally did nothing. The man, like, nobody in his chat aside, like, look, here's the one thing that you'll be able to say. He ran the turnover meeting. Cool. Nick Sorensen ran that last year, and the 49ers turned the football over 1 million times. So cool. If you want to go at it at that, but nobody knows what Brandon Staley did. For all they know, he just wore a bunch of Niners gear and sat up in a booth and ate nachos. We never saw. He never spoke to the media. Nobody ever talked about him.
Photo copies, made sure the pencils were sharp. Like, we
Gang is collecting a check, and you're hating on that. He didn't even do anything. Just put the fries in the bag, bro. When I see Staley working at your local McDonald's. Oh, I'm sorry. I just had to laugh about that because
we needed to laugh like this. It's been a long year, man. It's been
everyone hated Brandon Staley, and they still do. And it's like, yo, Gang didn't do nothing but just show up and get his check. Like, and he's like, and he was like, bro, I don't even talk. Like, I don't even be in the meetings talking. Like, I had plenty of good ideas. Nobody wanted to listen to me.
All I'm doing is pulling clips and tape and bringing the stat sheet. They're like, fire this.
They hired me to wipe off the whiteboard, and I was thinking, you guys are yelling at me. I didn't do anything.
He's so that I really do think that might be one of the only.
No, he's definitely a candidate. Also, like all jokes aside,
I really think they're concerned about the public perception because I think they would have hired Staley.
Yeah,
if he wasn't such a negative blowback, and considering you're coming off a Super Bowl loss, right? Like it was just a lot of bad energy, bad optics, bad vibes, and I think the 49ers were trying to be cognizant of that. And because if you think about it, like think if Staley was the DC this entire year, how worse the DC discourse would be.
Because they were giving Sorensen grace, at least saying like, "Yo, he's never done this before." But if it was Staley,
if it was Staley, they would have been calling for Kyle like right away. Like
49er fans would have January 6th, 49-49 DeBartolo away. Like if that was the case with Staley. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it.
But it's funny how things work. It's funny how optics are. It's funny how perception travels. And, we don't know. Like we really don't. Like, so it'll be fascinating to see. But what are some names? I saw someone talking about Pete Carroll. I saw Pete Carroll got a head coaching opportunity. We heard this morning that it's expected that Saleh is going to get an offer by the 49ers, but he also has 2 head coaching interviews. He could potentially land one, especially if he goes over there with Trent Baalke with the Jags. So we'll see what happens there. But I don't know, man. I really don't have a good read on who it might be. I really don't. But like to your point, though, that I didn't even think about, at least they have options. They didn't have options last year.
The thing is, what scares me is if Saleh's your number one choice and you allow him to just go on interview after interview after interview and all these other defensive coordinators start getting picked off and then he ends up taking a job or just saying, I'm not taking that job, then you're right back in the same spot that you were in last season. So that's my only fear. My thing is this, and I'm trying to get into the mind of Robert Saleh. I do believe that Robert Saleh does not want to be a defensive coordinator, especially when there's teams that are calling you. Yeah, there's teams that are calling you to be a head coach right now.
Right. It would have to be like a fallback situation where he doesn't get a head coaching job. Then it's like, all right, I'll go be the DC.
But by the time you go through the interview processes, how many defensive coordinator jobs are going to be there? Because the 49ers can't sit around and wait.
Right.
So again, if you're sitting there and you're waiting the entire time for Robert Saleh and you do all of that stuff, and then all of a sudden, by the time Robert Saleh becomes available, you've already had to, and then let's look at it like this. The Ulbrich thing, he's getting head coaching jobs, right? I don't think Ulbrich's going to, he is. He's getting interviews for like that as well too. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, the Jets, for God's sakes, interviewed Rex Ryan. So they're like an unserious organization. It's just like literally like anybody. Like who's going to be the first organization to offer John Gruden an interview? Like when is that going to happen? Like you see Ron Rivera being in this stuff. Like the NFL loves their old guard of like coaches that can't get it done. And those guys that like yell at players and like the game's passed a lot of those guys by. Right. Saleh, I don't think wants to be a DC. Ulbrich, maybe. Okay. What I would do is, and I love that they're bringing this up. Spagnuolo is interviewing for 2 head coaching jobs, and what I want to
be a head coach.
But what I want to point out too is teams can't block him from trying to get a promotion. They can block lateral moves,
right? Which is what they did last year,
right? So the name I want is someone that's a lateral move, but is this team going to let him go? Is Jim Schwartz?
100%. We're on the same page already.
I want Jim Schwartz.
Yep.
When you look at guys that have given Kyle fits, Spags is not going to come over because he tried that last year. Flores is probably not going to leave because if he stays, one more year. He can probably get a head coaching job. And then obviously Minnesota nests themselves that comp pick, being that he's a minority hire. He's already been there 2 years. This will be his third. He's just trying to strengthen his case. Schwartz is the guy that I think that what the Browns are doing, because they did hire a new offensive coordinator, they do feel like they're on the cusp of just kind of turning this whole thing over and figuring everything else out. You know, obviously their head coach is going to stay. But if you're talking about guys that have given Coach Shanahan fits and a guy that you're going to need to shut down other Shanahan offenses, I want Jim Schwartz, man. And yeah, I would hope Cleveland would allow him to be interviewed. But if it is a lateral move, then they can.
Right. They won't let that happen. And I was talking about that yesterday too, when the news came out. That was my number one, because for the exact same reason you mentioned, like, think about that collaborative effort of being able to have that guy in the building where you can actually bounce like, all right, man, you've had my number now for how long? Like, let's figure this out. What are you?
He tried it with Spags. He was like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of you keep doing this to me. Like, you got to come over here. And he just was like, he couldn't.
Exactly. So I would love that idea. But again, like you mentioned, he's under contract and it would be a lateral move. So we would have to see how that ultimately played out. But that's kind of like my mindset as well, is like, it would be great to have someone who has had success against like Kyle schemes and things of that nature. So we'll see who it's going to be. I'm kind of torn about the idea of like, does it have to be a wide nine merchant, or can it be something different? You know, I'm kind of in between, but I would love to see, regardless of what it is, if it is the wide nine and we stick with that and we continue to run, you know, if it's Gus Bradley, I don't know, if you bring in some that ilk.
All right, can I complain
I just want
about
them to be creative. I want them to be a little spicy. Come on, give me something.
The complaint about Gus Bradley is the whole idea that the 49ers have been trying to replicate the Legion of Boom defense is literally what you would bring Gus Bradley back for.
Right.
And I think we all want innovation, not someone who's going to just do the same things that have been done defensively over and over again and expect a different result. And that's what I'm afraid of with Gus Bradley. The Seattle ties, the way that they ran that defense, Legion of Boom. Like, you're chasing something that is now 12 years old. And this league moves fast, real fast. And that's why, if it was Jim Schwartz is not going to come here and say, you want me to run wide nine? You want me to run cover 3 this entire time? No, I'm not going there for that. Like, he's one of those names. He's one of those ones. He's one of those guys that can say, I'm not doing that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put all these guys in position so they can win, and I'm going to play to all these guys' strengths. And he has the cachet to be able to do that. But the Gus Bradley thing feels like a step in the wrong direction, because it literally, Gus Bradley's going to be like, I'm not changing a thing. I'm not changing a thing. I know exactly what I need to do here, because
30 years. You think I'm like change something?
That's the thing. So the Gus Bradley thing is like, enough. You're trying to replicate a defense that is 12 years old. All those guys are out of the league except for Bobby Wagner. And you're trying to still chase that dragon when there are far more examples of other teams that have been able to have great defenses that don't run all that shit. Like,
you know what I
this
want,
is
Jason?
the part of innovation. I look, show me something different, and if it fails, I'll at least give you props for saying, you know what, you tried something different. But do the same things over and over again. Come on.
You know what I want to see, Jason? I want to see what I saw from the 49ers offensive perspective all year. I want to see a world that exists where you create free rushers with only rushing 4. Like the 49ers saw nonstop, week in, week out. How do we replicate that? Like, how is it us every week? You got free rusher, looper, and they're like, you look, you're like, wait, they're only bringing 4.
Well,
you're like, what the hell?
Well,
man?
Brad, you know, this defensive line was not going to take a step back with Eric Armstead leaving. I mean, why would that happen? Because he's useless. All right. That's the problem, right? Is nothing is ever going to top Ford, Armstead, Buckner, and Bosa. That's your
unless you draft,
and that's where it's going to have to, because Hargrave's leaving. Malik Collins is a rotational guy. That's fine. Leonard Floyd is a veteran. He's been fine.
He's
but
solid.
But you can't just rush 4 unless all 4 are studs. Right. All 4 are studs. And we've only really been able to see. Well, and the other years that we were able to see it, the 49ers were successful at the formula that has failed them this season. Meaning, yeah, the names on the back of the jersey don't jump out at you. But when O'Menahue and Arden Key and this guy are filling in and playing very well with Bosa, then you can look around and say, hey, see, we're able to duplicate this because we found names. Now, when you go bargain basement diving for a defensive lineman, and you don't get the results, now you look around and like, okay, this process worked in 2021. Does it work in 2025? And I think, again, the 49ers have to start and end this draft in the trenches. Both sides, one way or another. And that's the only way you can get back to 4 rushers and just dropping everybody and being able to have a good coverage.
And one of the reasons why we're here is because Javon Kinlaw just sadly didn't turn out to be what he was drafted to be. And so you move on from Defoe, you basically get 0 in return. I mean, he was able to play there towards the end, but not to the impact that the 49ers need from an interior defensive tackle. So I think the 49ers have told us, like, with Eric, that clearly was a cat move. They needed to get away from that money. I think they would have liked to keep him. I think they offered him a pretty substantial pay cut, if I'm not mistaken.
And he just didn't accept it. He took the right deal for his family. Again,
he got paid. Jags fans don't seem to like him all that much.
That's their business. Jags fans don't like life.
Well, they're just your general manager.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
For any of our viewers, and also you, Brad, does anyone long for the type of job security that Trent Baalke has been able to, have over? Because it doesn't, like, it's head coach goes, but he survives.
How does he do it?
He must have incriminating photos that would sink the Khan's building, where, because they're big into wrestling, if I'm not mistaken, right? The AEW.
Oh man.
And they're competing with WWE. So maybe he's got something incriminating on them while they're trying to compete. WWE has Raw on Netflix, and they're moving up into a big spot. Can't let them get too crushed. And he's just like, if you don't keep me, I'm gonna release these photos. Of who? Like, I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, my goodness, man.
It's bad when we can't even rationalize why he still has a job. I mean, it's been well documented, my feelings for him, so we don't need to get into depth on that. But at the end of I think the original point is we understand the 49ers need to get better at DT.
Yeah.
That to me is it's got to be one of the biggest, like, at the top of the list if we're ranking hierarchy of what needs
Mason
to
Graham, come on home.
That's what I'm saying. Come on, cousin, come through. Like, that's what we need. Like, we need a defensive tackle who can not only rush the passer but can be a 3-down DT. That's what we need. A guy who can be a menace out of the 3 tech. We need that. And not like, I really like Malik Collins as a interior pass rushing defensive tackle.
Rotational.
Not
right, because he gets blown up on the run.
Exactly. He's not a 3-down guy. But I'm more than happy to keep him and keep him a part of the rotation.
And Gross Matos.
And Gross Matos, because they present value for how much they paid or cost to acquire them. But if we're going to be honest, and we've seen Bosa go through these disappearing acts, right? Like, what did they kept saying on the broadcast in the Arizona Cardinal game? Oh, well, this backup's in and he's doing a heck of a job because we haven't called Nick Bosa's name all day. And it's like, how do we get back to that dominance? Is that Nick Bosa just, understanding that the season is over and it is what it is? Or I don't know. It sounds like Nick Bosa kind of admitted to needing to do some soul searching this year. But I just have been of the belief that if you want to have the best defense you can, because we've seen it this way, and the 49ers talk about it consistently, you have to have the best defensive line. And they didn't go about it that way this year. And I think that you saw Fred Warner get eaten alive, throughout the year because everyone was getting off blocks. You could single block everyone, no need for doubles, meaning linebackers can't, shoot the gaps that they need to, and they can't flow the way they need to. And it just creates terrible situations for everyone on the defense when you don't have a consistent effort from the defensive line. So, I mean, they called me insane, Jason, when it was a mock draft, but I drafted a D end and a DT and back-to-back picks, first, second round. They called me a madman. And I said, no, I see the issue coming from a billion miles away. So necessarily, was my mock actually any good? No, but the process was there.
Yeah.
The process was they needed more defensive line. They needed another defensive end, and they needed another defensive tackle of impact. And you saw this year, especially when Hargrave goes down super early on, it was like, oh, well, now we're screwed, because then Kevin Givens goes out, and then it's just like you're instantly leaning on
Evan Anderson was good. You shouldn't have to play him as much, though. That's not,
I mean, he was great for
he was. That's another hit in the draft, like you said.
Fantastic. But it's like, man, you in a perfect world, he's not playing because you have elite guys in that role to continue to make those plays. And that's what makes, when you don't have that in this defensive scheme, like what I've noticed, Jason, is a lot of pushback on the wide nine. And I've actually gotten this question a lot, and I was actually kind of surprised by it, because they're like, well, we should can the wide nine. And I can understand, because it sounds like a complicated scheme from everyone we've talked to, whether or in our understanding. Like, I remember I asked Nick Bosa, I'm like, what do you think about Yetur? And he's like, well, he's still grasping the wide nine. It's taking him a long time to get it. Hargrave said the same thing. It's taken me a long time to kind of pick up the scheme with the wide nine. Leonard Floyd said it's taken me a long time to pick up the scheme with the wide nine. So I don't know. I'm not a defensive lineman, so I don't understand what exactly is the challenge. But at the end of the day, if you have the personnel to execute it, I think that is the difference with any scheme, Jason. I think you have to. It's a collaboration. You can't just have a scheme with and not have the guys to execute it.
I think if I was walking in and I was a defensive coordinator and I had an interview, I'd walk in, I'd sit down, I'd shake John Lynch's hand, I'd shake Kyle Shanahan's hand, I'd shake Jed York's hand, whoever else is in the room, Parag Marate, whoever. And they say, hey, Jason, what can you bring to the 49ers defense that we are so lacking? And I would say, what if I told you, fellas, that I could bring you the widest nine? No one's nine will be wider than my defenses. God damn it, you're hired. Hire him right now. That's it. Like literally right there. Hire this man.
Oh my, I've heard enough.
I've heard enough.
Jason, you just saved the 49ers. Yeah, that's hilarious. I had no idea where you're going with that.
I know. Look, again, realistically, I do again, I've got actual analysis too. I'm only laughing because the season's over and I'm just trying to have fun with you guys.
Bro.
It's done.
We need to laugh.
It's done. It's done.
There's been a lot of stress.
It's done. I didn't lose.
We've been talking a lot of negative stuff lately, so
I didn't lose mad hair, anything like that. I'm good. No, but realistically, I did like what Kyle said about being able to amend the scheme and everything. But I do think it goes back to what we were talking about. Only a certain amount of names, only a certain amount of people will be able to spark that change. And when you mention someone like Gus Bradley, or you mention someone who is a disciple of the Seattle defense, right? KJ Wright's our defensive quality control as well, too, right? If you do all that, then you are literally saying that you want to stick with that, because those people are not going to infect the change that could make this personnel better. And there's only a few names out there that will be able to have the cachet, have the resume to walk in and say, I'm not running that. I've done this, this, and this at these places. Kyle, I beat your ass a bunch of times. Your teams literally can't beat my teams defensively regardless of my personnel. Trust me. But again, it's only those certain amount of names that are allowed to do that. And I fear if the 49ers sit around and they wait too long for Robert Saleh, who is going to get head coaching interviews, mull it over with his family, take all the time that he needs, you are going to miss out on somebody else that could infect the change that you want to see. And I'm more afraid of the idea of, we have a name on our list and we want to see that through. But what if he doesn't want you? And that's the part that kind of scares me a little bit more.
Yeah. So what you're saying is decisions need to be made swiftly, probably within the next week.
Think about this, Brett, and I'm going to take it back to what I was saying about last season when the 49ers got into the offseason late. You're literally playing into February, and then all of a sudden, boom, off of the heartbreak of a game that you should have won based on a few plays, you got to start evaluating. You got to start evaluating your talent. And when you get into that process late and you don't have a defensive coordinator that you are in sync with in terms of what it is that you need, right? I go back to, and I thought this was like really big from the offseason Hard Knocks with the Giants. When they brought in Wink Martindale and they were going through their draft process, they said, what do you need? What are you looking for? Because he has to be a part of the process in dealing with traits and positions. Now, when you're going into the draft process and you still don't know your defensive coordinator and you're knee deep in it at the combine, right? Because it's 1 month away from there with the, I hope you guys didn't just start watching guys the day of the combine. It puts you a little bit behind the 8 ball. And today's January 8th. Teams are firing defensive coordinators, hiring defensive coordinators, interviewing all of them. You have to start moving, because this draft is as important as any during the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch era, because it's part of the next chapter of their era. And they're going to be forever tied to these players who are going to be the future. And will they be a part of sustained winning, or will it signal the end of their time here? So yes, the sooner the better. The sooner the better. Start getting into your players now. Start figuring out who it is that you want here. Get the guy that you have the ideas with and the scheme. I know it sounds easier than done, but it is important that they start early and they start right away, because they've been so far behind. When the 49ers lose in the NFC Championship game and DeMeco Ryans leaves, okay, now that's something different. But he was here the year before. Like, he was there at the NFC Championship game as well. So you didn't have to do that the year before. But this is going to be a year where you had a long run. You had to find a defensive coordinator. You had a long run. You have to find a defensive coordinator. And we all agreed that the process was itself flawed just based on the timeline. Now, you have all the time in the world. And you do have an idea of what it is. And I think it's important that it starts sooner than later. Not a rush. Not just any guy, though, by the way. Same thing that we say about draft prospects. The right guy. But you all need to be in lockstep, because this draft is super important to the next chapter for John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan.
The draft is very important. Figuring out some contracts of some key players, very important as well. What are your thoughts on the Brock Purdy situation, what they had to say today? You feel like that will get wrapped up in a conversation of the past? How do you view that?
I feel a lot more confident in that. I don't think that's going to go too far. But again, what the hell do I know? because this could all the way like bleed into OTAs and training camp. But I just don't think they can afford that.
I
When you
agree.
consider, get
If they were coming off of maybe a high caliber winning season, maybe they could flex a little bit more. But I think they really need to be focused on the product on the field. And if in their brain it means that Brock Purdy is going to be their quarterback next year, then it needs to be before OTAs and training camp.
Yeah.
They really need to keep that in the forefront of their mind. Anyone who is a fan of this team, covers this team, can see from a mile away how detrimental these negotiations are to on-field product just to pay them in the end. Just do it sooner. Like just do it sooner.
And then the other thing is, yeah, I know they said that Deebo Samuel's coming back. I'm not particularly shocked about that. I know a lot of people are. I think we all kind of assumed that it would be a post-June 1 thing. The numbers don't necessarily really help the 49ers. I believe they just saved like $3 million in cap. So I guess the way the 49ers are really looking at it is just like, that's not worth it,
Right. For me, I'm waiting for the draft to end to be like, okay, yeah. Deebo's here.
But this OTA training camp, all that process, this is crucial. It's critical. I don't think that any of us believe that Brandon Ayuk is going to be ready for training camp. Juwan Jennings had a stellar season, but Juwan Jennings is not a 1. Ricky Pearsall is going to have to play a lot.
He'll be the X next year.
Yeah, he has to play a lot next season. And if we saw anything during this season with Pearsall, we saw that they had a tough time getting on the same page, and Pearsall had a tough time figuring out where to get lined up, all of those things. And then you have Deebo. But I think with the Deebo thing, the way that they construct the offense around him doesn't necessarily need reps, right? They're going to use him in the backfield. They're going to throw him some tunnel screens, right? Like everything is kind of just there. Kind of plays at the same speed, especially at this point of his career. But this offseason is vital in Brock Purdy figuring out his cadence, his timing with Ricky Pearsall. If, God forbid, you could try to figure it out with Jacob Cowing, that would be even better. But this is not the offseason to have him sitting around and not being there at OTAs, at training camp because of a contract. This is not the season for that. All this stuff has to be knocked out early, very early. And that doesn't mean anything for everybody. I don't think it's going to take that long for Dre Greenlaw. I know you're probably going to ask about that as well, too. I think Dre Greenlaw is going to get a ton of attention because I think a lot of people are just betting on a bounce back from him.
Do you think go ahead.
No, but the Brock Purdy thing's got to get wrapped up. That's it, essentially. It's got to get wrapped up. You've got to get him and that offense right back in there so you can shake off last season and just get back to what you've been able to do. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, you got to let them build. And it starts in OTAs. It starts in mandatory minicamp. Limit the distractions. I get that, when John Lynch was asked directly about why is there so much drama that surrounds you guys, what did he talk about? He talked about having good players and having to pay them. Mm-hmm. So he associates the drama with contract negotiations. So let's figure it out. Are you going to pay Brock or not? And if the answer is yes, then just rip the Band-Aid off. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously, be smart. Do it in a way where Parag can work his magic and structure it in a way that doesn't sink the 49ers in the future. Mm-hmm. And you can add all these little things into the contract to get the APY up so it looks good in print for the agent, for Brock. Just make sure the guaranteed money's right. Make sure the incentives and the way it's laid out doesn't hurt you from building in the future, because something tells me that while on one hand I expect Brock to go after not take a discount, he also strikes me as someone who wants to make sure that his contract doesn't hurt the team around him. Now, obviously, it's going to be that way one way or the other because that's just the nature of paying guys, so you can't get away from it 100%. But I would assume that he would have the awareness to be able to be like, yeah, pay me, but also let's figure this out so we can continue to build.
Can you put Jim Everett's comment up? Just leave it up. I have no response to it. Shout out to
Which
Jim Everett,
one?
man. The
Bottom
last one.
or the top?
Yeah, the last one. Yeah, the last one. Yeah, it's fine. He's allowed to say that. I like that. I think it's funny. I think it's hilarious. Shout out to Jim Everett, man, and good luck in the playoffs, man.
So moving forward, it is what it is. I think we all understand that. What would you prefer? Like, what's the alternate of not paying Brock? Aaron Rodgers?
Yes. No, you know what it
Kirk
is.
Cousins?
Yes. Oh my God.
I don't want it, man. I don't want it.
I don't want it either. But in the same way that I said all that about Brandon Staley, my God, to watch this fan base absolutely implode, to know that Kirk Cousins would be swag surfing in Levi Stadium, and Kyle would finally get his white whale. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Look, Kyle Shanahan, look, this is how I'm going to put it. For everybody that's here, and then we have a very good mix of male and female watchers. Let's say you're a female, and there's been a guy who has messaged you, DM'd you, and it hasn't been the right time, right? Perhaps you're in a relationship and you say, I can't. Or perhaps you're just off of a relationship and you say, you know what? I can't. I haven't fully healed. Perhaps you're dating someone else. But then it's a 4 or 5 year line down the line and he DMs you. And you know what? You're fully healed. You're not seeing anybody.
Long game.
You're not seeing anybody. And, you said, you know what? This guy's been trying hard enough. Maybe let me go see what's going on with him. And you go on a date with him. And that's what Kirk. So Kirk is the woman who is either in a relationship, just out of a relationship, healing, or seeing somebody or dating somebody. And Kyle is the thirst bucket on Instagram that continues to DM you every time you post. Like, you post a selfie, wow, you look beautiful. You post a selfie, he's gonna send a like on it. You post a selfie with your family, that's a great looking guy. Like, he's the guy that constantly is DMing you,
playing the long game.
And then finally, you say, you know what? I don't really got anything else going on here. Let me see what this guy is all about. And then you wind up finding yourself in that situation.
But see, the problem with this girl is that relationship will never lead to a marriage. It's going to lead to eventual split and breakup. There's no long-term anything with it. It's a good time for now, maybe, but maybe this girl has been so traumatized by her past relationships that you get into it, you're like, man, I made a mistake.
Now, I agree. But let's spin it this way. This girl has been in a few long-term relationships. Kirk Cousins has gotten guaranteed money wherever he's gone. And now he might just be looking for a good time because he's tired. She's tired of the long-term relationships where guys either don't state their intentions, they are playing games, they want to have multiple women around, which Kyle is on quarterback Tinder 3,000%, by the way. I think 100%. We all kind of figured that out. Yeah.
100%.
But what if this young lady is done dating for love? What if this young lady is dating for money? And you know what? The 49ers could be sending.
That's another relationship. You're not selling me on Kirk Cousins.
I'm not selling you. I'm just telling you that, Coach.
I'm running for the hills. Everything Coach, you're saying, I'm running.
Coach is the guy that has been in the DMs every single year. Or like sending a DM saying, I noticed that you took all the pictures of your boyfriend down on your Instagram. Is everything okay? But what if Kirk Cousins is done with long-term relationships and he wants money? I don't know, man. Look, I'm just kidding. I don't want.
No, this is hilarious.
I don't want Kirk Cousins.
I love talking about the quarterback.
I don't want Kirk Cousins. No, at this point. But in all actuality, someone did say it. Kirk Cousins would be the perfect backup for Brock Purdy. If he came here for nothing, he'd be perfect. He'd be perfect. So
I expect something like that. I expect the 49ers in free agency to do that. Whether we like
and they're
it or
gonna
not,
they're gonna use both of them as leverage against
exactly
Brock, by the way.
I fully expect it. I've been saying it on. It's not like I want it. It's just we've identified the trend more often than not, and so it is what it is. It's going to happen. Is it going to be Daniel Jones like Mufasa is talking about? He says,
No. Did you see what Minnesota did?
They signed him
to the active roster for what reason?
Sam Darnold insurance?
No. If Daniel Jones leaves and signs somewhere else, they get a comp pick. Yes. Now, right now, the Vikings are in this weird spot. Shout out to Brandon, man. Please don't fall off the treadmill. But I'm glad you were laughing. Like, I'm glad to keep you guys entertained. Hey, look, it's gonna be a fun offseason. I'm having a blast. But the Vikings are in this weird spot because if you sign Sam Darnold, you almost have to move J.J. McCarthy. You can't waste the rookie. The idea of the rookie contract is banking on the rookie contract while putting many things around him with a great play caller. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
But I don't think the Vikings are going to blow up their plan with J.J. McCarthy for Sam Darnold. Go ahead.
Can you franchise Sam?
I don't think they can because he's only had 1 year with them.
So you can't franchise even if he's an unrestricted free agent. You can't.
That I don't know. Someone in the comments is going to tell us that it's smarter.
Because that might be the move. But
he won't play on that.
Yeah, that's bad business.
He won't play on that
from a player perspective.
He won't play on
franchise perspective. That would be the perfect idea. Franchise Sam. Give your guy another year, and then decide at the end of that.
Essentially, all I was going to say is I think you can't blow up your plan for J.J. McCarthy for Sam Darnold, and especially not after 1 year. I think you let somebody else sign Sam, you keep J.J. McCarthy, and Daniel Jones is the perfect backup quarterback for the youngster, J.J. McCarthy.
Bridge guy.
Yeah. No. Not even. J.J.'s got to play. Right off the bat, he's got to play
for sure.
He's got to play. If Daniel Jones has to step in for a game or two, you can find a way to win a game or two with him. You know, you're not going to do anything if he has to play a long extended time. But I do think that they really look at Daniel Jones as their backup and the way Kevin O'Connell's been talking about him and everything as well too. So yeah, I think you got to stick with the plan. JJ McCarthy's your starter next season. I think the only thing that's going to give them pause is if Sam Darnold does the impossible and takes the Vikings to the cusp of something and they start to look around can we look everybody on this roster in the face and say, we're letting that guy go and we're throwing it in the hands of a rookie, essentially trying to run it back. That part
looks like he did against the Lions. I think they would be able to make that decision.
It was peak Sam Darnold to have that type of game in the biggest game of the season, right there. It's just I was like, dude, this guy's been throwing darts all season and just making us all look stupid. And then all of a sudden, when we're yeah, I think they got a shot right here.
I finally gave him credit.
And he turns into a pumpkin.
Do you notice when I give people credit, they S the bed, man? What is
you know what you should do? You should start praising the Rams and the Packers and the Eagles. You know, we're gonna big brain thoughts only. So if we come on the stream and we're negative, it's not because we hate the 49ers, it's because we're doing what's best for the team. You're welcome.
Yes, we're jinxing them.
Right. But Darnold, I do think leaves. I do think that if they do decide to keep one or the other, then the other one's got to go. So if they take Sam, then JJ's got to get traded because you're wasting the valuable rookie quarterback contract that he has. But I do think Daniel Jones is going to be the backup to one of those guys one way or another. So I do think that it'll probably be JJ's backup. So I do think Daniel Jones isn't going anywhere. And I do think that they will find a way to bring him back. But kudos to them. Like, if someone wants to get silly and give Daniel Jones a contract, then they get a comp pick. The 49ers have been passing the game down to everybody.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
We got I actually like this hypothetical quite a bit by Corey. Says Jags are on the clock at number 5 and Mason Graham is there. Jags want number 11 and next year's first. You making the deal. What is your response to this?
I don't.
I agree. I don't. I'll let you say why, but I say no, but I'm countering. But what are your thoughts?
I don't, just because that's a lot to go up for 6 spots. And then next season, when you need another draft class and another first round pick, you find yourself again in the same boat that you've been in for many years. I applauded the 49ers for their passion to move up for the number 3 pick. I booed their process because they moved up to the number 3 pick and then said, well, we're going to start evaluating quarterbacks. That's your problem. Yeah. I applaud your passion for going to get your guy, but I don't
even think they got their guy. I think
they did it, but they didn't even know who the guy was.
It wasn't Fields.
It was one of those. It's like, hey, one of these guys, we'll figure it out. No,
we really like that Mac Jones guy.
What you do is you evaluate the quarterbacks, you identify the guy, you become convicted, it's the word, right, in that person, and then you move up. You don't move up and say, we're going to start watching everybody. We're going to everybody's pro day.
And then on draft day, call the Packers and be like, hey, is Aaron Rodgers available?
Is Aaron Rodgers available?
What are we doing, dude?
I applaud.
What are we doing?
I applaud the boldness.
It went exactly how it went for a reason. They were not convicted after they made that trade.
It's like they got to 3 and they were like, all right, let's start watching these quarterbacks. And they were like, shit. Mac Jones stinks. Yeah. Mac Jones stinks. Oh man. I don't think we can do this with Justin Fields. You know what? Maybe Trey Lance. It's like they were just like
the lesser of both evils for them. It was like he's kind of like a hybrid Mac like Fields, I think, in their opinion.
What happened was Kyle was tired of getting his ass kicked by Josh Allen, and he said, well, how do I find Josh Allen? A really tall guy that plays in a mid-major and all that stuff, and it's the process was poor more than anything. I don't care if you give up 3 first-round picks if the guy that you get at 3 is your franchise quarterback and you get him on the rookie deal early on. That masks so many other things. But when the process is we're going to 3 and then you start watching everybody's film and you were like, I think we made a really big mistake and there's no takebacks in the NFL. You wonder why Miami was like, sure, come on down. Take number 3. What did they do with number 3? What did they do with all those? They turned it into Bradley Chubb, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I don't even have to go through all the rest of them. Of course they were going to say yes. The problem was you can't trade up to a spot when you have no idea who the player is that you're going to take and start your process there. Poor process. I'm a big process over results guy. You can get the end result by accident, just like the 49ers did with Brock. They got their franchise guy, but they got it by accident. But
complete accident.
But when the process is right and you go to the right and then that player doesn't pan out, I feel better because I feel like you're on the right track and your mind is kind of working in the right direction. If I can see the vision, then I can give you some grace. When I can't see the vision and I find out all these other things, we didn't know who it was going to be, then I'll never side with it. And that's not Trey Lance's fault. That's the 49ers' fault.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Trey was kind of put into an impossible position because they didn't believe in him when they made the call, and that's why they kept Jimmy. And
they were just like, Trey Lance at DSU, they can't go to the phone. Like, damn it, man. What the hell? Like, it's just like, it's like when you're on a clock for a fantasy draft and you're in that dead area where you're like, do I take Tajay Spears or
you draft
like
a guy like 15 picks like ahead of where he should be drafted?
Just to get every Do I take like you're in that RB dead zone where it's like, do I take Tajay Spears or Zach Charbonnet or like one of these backup running backs that needs an injury? Yeah, it's just gross. Like you just press the button and you just feel gross about it. Like that's exactly what happened. But they weren't in the middle rounds; they were at number 3.
Yeah. Let me kick this back to you from in a form of a counter. I would say no to the first because it's too valuable. But
I'll give a second.
Second, I would consider. But just like a player that we were talking about, what if Baalke says, we'll take your 11th and Debo and you move
number
up
5?
to 5. Then you move up to 5.
You have to take the entire contract, not post June 1.
Yeah.
You got to take the contract. Like,
meaning me as the 49ers or me as
the Jags.
Me, Trent Baalke.
Well, I'll take the contract. Debo's worth it. Like, that's what he would say. Like I would say, listen,
you have to pay all the millions of dollars. No, I don't know.
11 and Debo, you got to take the contract. You know what? We'll pay him the signing bonus. But I don't need the dead cap. 50%. I don't need the dead cap.
We'll take on 75% of the contract.
And send us Christian Kirk.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, I
love Christian Kirk. I signed him to one of the richest deals.
I paid Christian Kirk. We truly believed in him and to be a great player.
So then you start being a jerk to him and be like, "Yo, Brian Thomas Jr."
Just start bullying.
Yeah, just like no, Brian Thomas Jr. Then, and Josh Allen Hines.
Draft day him.
Yeah, I'm kidding. I'm gonna do what's right for the organization.
I'm a pancake face, pal.
Yeah.
No, like I would consider that. Like I don't know if I'd consider the first round pick, but I would consider 11 and something, but not the first. So I like the hypothetical though. Did we lose Jason? No, there it is.
No, yeah, you lost me. No, I don't like giving up first now.
Yeah.
And you can say what you want about the 49ers and are they even good in the first? I don't care. You know why? The first round is a 50-50 crapshoot for everybody.
It is.
But then when you go in the second round, it's a 35% chance. And when you go in the third round, it's a 15% chance. When you go in the fourth round, it's a 5% chance. So give me every single crack that I can at a high-end first-round pick. Say what you want. The only two that have really worked have been Nick Bosa and Brandon Ayuk. But the chance of being able to get a blue chip guy is something that you won't get. You just won't get.
Just trade a player with an old ACL injury. Who do we have?
See you, Brandon Ayuk. Enjoy Jacksonville, pal.
BA, you're gone, pal. Remember all those early rumors that everyone yelled at me about? The
hope Jaguars? You learned leopard, whatever their mascot is. Like, you better learn leopard, pal. Wait a minute, Trent Baalke.
Jaguars? Isn't it a jaguar?
Have you heard about? It's not. I don't know. It's a leopard. It's something. Whatever. Have you heard?
It's not a jaguar. It's a leopard.
Have you heard that not only did Brandon Ayuk tear his ACL, but he tore his MCL.
His MCL.
And
he severely damaged his PCL.
You say that? I'll have him over on the next bus.
One kid out of South Carolina that I really felt strongly about.
No, it's not CU Ayuk. It's the only one that I could think of with an ACL injury that's worth a valuable anything, right?
No,
like
we're literally joking.
No.
Who else?
Don't worry, Brandon Ayuk won't be available until week 8. Oh, I love it.
Oh, even better. Does that mean we can prorate his deal?
Yeah, hold on real quick. Just because we're talking about Baalke so much, I want to let you guys know that I know that everybody's watching and understands that Brad is just the nicest guy. He's a huge grizzly bear. You just want to get your paws on and just give a hug to whenever you see. But my God, I've never seen the fire in this man's eyes more than Trent Baalke's going to podium 2 at the combine. And I could hear the Kill Bill music. And Brad walked over. Have you ever watched anyone hate watch someone else's press conference? Because I have. Brad Graham was hate watching Trent Baalke asking questions, and he literally got to the point where I felt like he wanted to ask a question and be a jerk. Like, why did you pass on Keenan Allen?
How do I ask him something? I was thinking, what should I ask?
What's the one player that you regret drafting, aka Keenan Allen for the San Francisco 49ers? That's what. But Brad,
what did you see in Vance McDonald that really made you convicted on him?
Brad was turning like a new shade of red. It was just
I've told the story a million times. That man made me almost stop being a 49er fan because I love the draft process so much, and he made me so sick to my stomach drafting that I was like, I can't do this anymore. This guy's making me hate football. I can't. It's good for my mental health.
I guarantee you that if Brad had been allowed to ask a question, you would have found out from me. Breaking news: Brad Graham has been escorted out of the conference. They forcibly removed. It would be the words that I use. Brad Graham was forcibly removed from media at the combine. Literally, that's exactly what
I was literally just standing there staring into his soul.
He was furious.
I was like, there he is.
Brad was wearing a sports coat. He was looking dapper. The man was red. I saw a single bead of sweat drop down his face, man. Literally, I was just like,
it was shaking
just
right by my side, just
like Arthur. I've never seen him like this. The man's passionate. I will give him that. And that's why you guys watch him, and that's why we all love him. My God, was that man ready to throw hands? I've never seen him like that.
Good old Trent Baalke,
yeah. And then he goes in, he's like, "What's up, guys?" And Brad was just like,
No, the second he started speaking, I was like, "There's that voice I haven't heard."
He just turns around.
Yeah, it's just like the PTSD, bro. Just hit. I was like, "Oh, I remember." I remember
Never seen anything like it. And if God willing,
oh man, good times.
God willing, knock on wood. Trent Baalke's there again, and we're at the combine, which we will be.
I got to figure out how to ask him a question.
I just cannot. Yeah. I just cannot wait, and I will instigate. You ever been around somebody who'll just be like, "Yo," I'll be like, "If it was me, I wouldn't put up with that."
Oh, yeah, you're the biggest instagator.
I am the biggest instigator. I'm like, "Yo, listen, you gonna let him talk to you like that? I wouldn't let that
here.
I'm not letting that shit slide. Look at him. He's right there. The ops is right there.
You escort me to the front to make sure I get the question.
Excuse me. He has a question. I'm like, yo, look, if that was me
here, you'd be like, hey, this guy's got a question.
If that was me, I don't let nothing slide. Petty's my favorite color. What you talking about? I'm gonna be right in Brad's ear, like, yo, you know what he said? He said something about your mama. That's crazy, bro. I wouldn't have let that. I'm not letting that slide.
Remember when he drafted Rashad Robinson?
I'm like, that's crazy, yo. Remember when he didn't draft Keenan Allen? That's crazy, bro. You gonna let that slide? I wouldn't let that slide. Personally, I wouldn't let that sort of disrespect. I don't tolerate that. That's what I would be doing. That's me.
So funny. But I'm so excited that this year's over. I'm excited that there's going to be a lot of changes coming and already made.
You're excited that the season's over?
I'm thrilled.
I'm sad, I feel like.
Really?
Yeah, I had a conversation with somebody this weekend, and I kind of was like, saying it, and I was just like, I'm sad that there's no more football games to cover, regardless of the outcome, because I know there's going to be a day in June where I would literally say, I would cut off my right hand if I could watch Bailey Zappi quarterback a team versus Mac Jones quarterback a team and any sort of football. So I know the season's been really trying. I'm not ready for it to be over, because what am I supposed to do with my time now? I mean, obviously watch draft prospects, but teams are going to have playoff games on this weekend, and I'm going to a Bills bar on Sunday, and they're going to be singing and dancing every time that they score. And it's just it just goes too fast. And I just feel like
this year went fast for sure.
And like whenever we talk about things and we think about it in the summer, we're all gonna be on Twitter like, my God, I'd kill to watch the worst team in football play the other worst team. I know we complain on Thursday night when we're like, all right, and let's see this Thursday night football, and then it's Chicago and Seattle. And we're like, I don't want to watch this crap. But then we end up in May and June, and we're just like, we'd kill to watch those two horrible teams like go at it, like that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Honestly, I can't wait for June and July to come around where I don't have to talk about anything. And I'm going to completely unplug and not make a single video for 3 weeks. I can't wait. I cannot wait.
First of all, I have a lot of questions. The first one would be, who the hell do you think you are? What makes you think? Hold on. What makes you think that you get time off? What makes you think that you're above the hypotheticals? What makes you think that you're above the discussion, especially going in it? What, like, how dare you? Like, that's more of the question that I have is two questions: is who do you think you are, and how dare you? Yeah, and how dare you? What do you think you're doing here, man? You don't think that you're gonna you don't think that you're gonna be at the lake one day and there's gonna be breaking news that Brandon Ayuk is ahead of his recovery schedule, and he has a chance to be around for less than week 4. He might not have to be on IR, and you're gonna get on your phone while you're in the water with your big Oakleys, and you're gonna drop a whole ass video saying, breaking news out of 49ers land. Who are you talking to? Who do you think you are?
Absolutely. I'll be on a freaking boat in the middle of a lake.
Bro's going to be out here fishing, and he's going to have his phone in his face talking about how Brandon Ayuk has a chance to be back week 3 and might not even be on the short-term IR for week 4 and what this means for the Rock. Brad, you're not fooling nobody. Again, these eyes, there's no wool that you can pull over them. Stop it.
Right. You know me so well. Stop. I can't pull.
Bro thinks he's gonna have a peaceful summer. Get out of here. Who do you think you are?
No, I'm excited to get away from the season. I think that's what it is. Because we're gonna be around football 3 weeks from now. So we're gonna be good, get that fixed.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna be
Senior Bowl soon.
Yeah. We're gonna be good. I'm gonna be good. I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited that the season's over. And I don't have to be upset by 49ers football anymore. So I am excited about that. But because I'm also excited too that we get to build. I'm a big fan of the building process, and I see a lot of avenues to build. We got first round draft pick.
Yep.
11th overall.
Free agency.
We got free agency coming up. I'm excited about that because this team's going to look different, and that excites me. So I'm glad that the football season's over, so we don't have to talk about the wasteland that it was. And we can actually start talking about this prospect, that free agent, and all those other things.
Mr. Never Miss, who is not missing with this either, with the last comment, the final one on the bottom.
What's it say? Next season, we need more. Yes. This was an inconsistent year for sure. First one.
For the 49ers and Brad and I.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you know what? I did everything that I could to, be prepared. Ultimately, it falls on me. I want to say that this season is like falling on me, and I want to make sure that those guys in that locker room and Brad and I are ready to go next season because there is a renewed focus and we do get a chance to reset and everything as well too. But I just want to say, in my best Jed York voice, this was not the best, and you deserve more. So.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yes, this is our exit press conference as well.
This is our Jed York moment. Like after we got whipped on Thanksgiving,
we failed the fan base, and we know we need to look ourselves in the mirror. And we need to do better. And
I could say it.
I can really attack it next season.
And I could say it like Kyle if you guys want it. I think that we gave it all that we could when it came to getting back in and doing these streams, but ultimately it's not always perfect. You'd like to, but I've got a lot of resolve, and I feel like we've got the right group of guys in here, and we have a lot of belief in those guys in there. It's not just as easy as all that. This is football's a hard game, and the margins are very thin.
Well said, Kyle. Well said. Oh man, it was a good stream. It was a cathartic one. Excited to laugh a lot more than I have, I think, all season. So that was good. That was very positive. And like we said, there's a lot to look forward to, I think, with this offseason. And again, part of that is that we don't have to watch 49ers. At least that's the way I'm looking at it. Like I'm happy because we don't have to diagnose why the 49ers haven't been that great this year. We already know. And so now we got to figure out how to fill those holes and how to get after it for another season.
Hey, yo, that was crazy.
I know.
That was crazy. Do we miss any super chats? I want to make sure we got to all of them or whatever. I saw like a few. Just want to make sure we get to all of them.
Nope, we got them all. No, wait. Did we miss this one?
Yeah,
we missed this one.
Yeah. But I think it was answered in the chat. If the Chiefs get bounced early, would they go for Spags? The 49ers have shown the interest in Spags, but they are going to
talking about it like naturally, and I forgot to bring it up. That's my
bad.
But
when it's a lateral move, they can block that. They can absolutely do that. So yeah, I mean, look, it's clear the 49ers were in on that. They tried that last year, so it's not like they would not exhaust that. But again, it goes back to the point of what we were saying with Salah is, can you afford to sit around and wait that long or end up with just whatever it is that you can end up with at defensive coordinator, right? Like this is the game that you have to play. The 49ers were the ones in the playoffs, were the ones in the Super Bowl, were the ones in, the championship game. So they had a leg down, not a leg up. But now you can't sit around and afford to wait, because if you sit around and you try that, and then all of a sudden you hit Spags and you're like, hey, you guys didn't win the bowl. Do you want to come over here? And he's like, nah. And you're like, well,
nah.
KJ Wright's our defensive coordinator, and he wants to run Seattle's cover 3 Legion of Boom stuff. No, like that's what scares you the most, is like the timetable, and everything's got to be on the right time. That's why it's good that the season, for whatever it's worth, is done now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see what happens. But you got anything else cooking up today? Or we're kind of later today, so you're probably done.
Yeah, I mean, it's 5:00 on the West Coast. Again, if you're affected by the fires, please be safe, guys. We're thinking about you. That matters a lot. I know a lot of people in the LA area. I just hope you guys are good. That is something that I couldn't imagine. Thoughts and good vibes your way. So I want to make sure with that. Today on Niners Nation, I dropped the first of my year in review position group. So if you want to check that out, it was the wide receivers today. Had a bunch of nice things to say about Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall towards the end, but I'm interested to see what you thought. I thought about Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, and no, I didn't include Ronnie Bell or Chris Conley in that discussion. And just NinersNation.com is where you're gonna find everything. Just waiting for Brian Peacock to get back. Shout out to him too, man. I know he's going through a personal tragedy right now, man. Thoughts and prayers, my boy. Hope everything is good with you and your family. And Sprint Right Option, we're gonna be doing the same thing. I kind of want to tease something that I'm gonna be doing. It's the last thing I think I need to do as NFL media, but I think I'm like on the 1 yard line. Depends on how you feel about being on the 1 yard line and getting it done, because Seattle was on the 1 yard line before they lost the Super Bowl. Ha 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 ha. But if I'm not at the Senior Bowl this year with Brad, I'll be at the Pro Bowl in Orlando, being able to talk with George Kittle and Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, and hopefully a few other 49ers that make it as alternates. Same week.
So the Pro Bowl, Shrine Bowl, and
the Senior Bowl are all going to be going on at the same time. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So you can't make it to all of them. But it would be cool to get to the Pro Bowl, be able to speak to George Kittle, talk to him about his phenomenal season. The same thing with Fred Warner. Ask them all the questions that you guys are looking for. Yeah. So Pro Bowl is the last thing I've have to do. I've done everything else: draft, combine, Senior Bowl, Super Bowl. Not in the booth like Brad. Obviously, that's something different. But yeah, the Pro Bowl will be pretty cool because Juszczyk, Kittle, Warner, and there'll probably be some other 49ers alternates that are going to be there due to injury and all that stuff. And
yeah, for sure,
there should be some good content there. So I'll try to pull as many good quotes as I can and give you guys some interviews and everything as well too. But sounds like it's closer to being done than I ever would have thought. So stick with me for that. Man. Yeah.
It's dope. You should definitely go. I'm definitely gonna stick with the Senior Bowl because it's gonna be a big year for scouting. So I really want to go to the Senior Bowl.
And you're better at that than I am.
right.
Me, I'm a people person. I gotta get in there and ask George Kittle like what's his favorite sneaker and you know what I'm saying, like stuff like that, and like Fred, you know,
you'll kill that.
Fred, are you gonna change your podcast you know, co-host? Because I don't know how that's working. Like, you know, all right, we got to get off this stream. This is off the Fred. Hey, Fred, look. As a professional podcaster, I just have some advice for you, real quick. Like, would you be open to a replacement on your podcast? Would you just be like, look? If you're not, you know, like, you know, I understand.
Well, are you inviting yourself to be the co-host?
No, not me. Not at all. No. It doesn't have to be any podcaster. Again, it doesn't have to be any position in the draft pick. It's got to be the right pick. Debo Samuel, do you want some tips on how to be a better podcaster? If you're there, I promise you, gang, I got you. You know, so I can help. You know, like I can help in the ways that are the intangible stuff. It's the stuff that you can't measure. It's not something that'll be on tape.
Like although it is on tape, right?
Podcast. Yeah, just like, you know, like, hey, look, Fred, just in your mind, would you like to maybe find a new podcast host? Just in case. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying kick your wife out of your house. Like, don't do that.
And on that note, State of the Franchise season in review has come to an end. This is a good episode. Man, we probably could have went for another hour. I guarantee it.
Easy.
But I appreciate everyone as always. I do agree. We'll get back onto a better track next season, just like everything else. I think we all felt the 2024 season, and I'm very much looking forward to leaving in the rear view. I'm sure Jason is as well, but best believe we're gonna have a lot of off-season content coming. So we're gonna get into that all, but appreciate everyone. Make sure you go sub to Jason's channel, smash the like button on both streams, all that good stuff. Grab your cookies on the way out. State of the Franchise. We out. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now.